I'm Starborn. Remember, to be a star, you have to shine your own light, follow your own path, and not be afraid of the darkness, because that's when stars shine brightest. And today we're talking about a lot of light in the sky, because tomorrow there is a new moon at 2 degrees of Leo. And so you may want to do some of the things that Leos are known for. For instance, you could want to have a good time, or go to a party, or maybe take the kids to the beach, or bet on the ponies, because Leo rules horse racing, or take a gamble in one way or another, or you might have already done that. So those are the things that Leo rules. It's lit by the sun, and tomorrow the sun and the new moon are going to be at 2 degrees of Leo. And Mercury is going to be in the sign as well, but it is retrograde, and it is at 16 degrees, I think. And so even though Leo rules leadership, and Leos like to be the head of things, that rules sports, so they like to be the captain of the team, still the title of today's show is Winning Isn't Everything. And I'm going to explain why at this time, under this very nice new moon in Leo, that winning isn't everything. And so let's sort of get into the facts of what's going on. For instance, at the beginning of the year, I did a show that covered all the new moons and the eclipses month by month for the whole year. And the title of that show was A Year of False Starts. And now we're about at the halfway point of the year, and perhaps you can see that you might have made some false starts, and this could be a time when you could be realizing that, and perhaps you're wanting to change something a little bit. Well, if you're strong in fire signs, you could get help with that, because there are actually 5 planets in the fire signs today, or tomorrow, and that is because the sun and new moon at 2 degrees of Leo, accompanied by Mercury, which is retrograde in Leo, are being trined beautifully by 2 more planets in Aries, which rules new beginnings. That's why recognizing a false start right now is not a bad idea, because you could have a great chance to make a new beginning as well. But the 2 planets in Aries, Neptune and Saturn, are both retrograde. And so these 5 planets, the 3 in Leo, the 2 in Aries, which are trining each other, and what that really means is that the majority of them, 3 out of 5, are retrograde. Well, then there's another retrograde planet right now that is also affecting this new moon tomorrow, and it is Pluto, which is retrograde at 3 degrees in Aquarius, which rules the future. And Pluto rules upper management in large corporations, government agencies, or institutions. And that Pluto, which is being trined by Venus and the ruler of Aquarius, Uranus, right now, so it's very strong. Even if it is retrograde, it's pretty strong. That Pluto, at 3 degrees, is closely opposing the sun and new moon tomorrow at 2 degrees of Leo. And so what we see is there are some challenges to a new start, because if you've made one already somewhere in the prior in the year, you may be realizing that it might be constituting a false start right now. And that means that if you had been sort of betting on the way things always used to be, you might be in a losing position right now. And one of the big reasons for that is that there are now 4 retrograde planets. When planets go retrograde on their orbit, they are going back and they're looking for information they missed the first time around. And when they find that, then they'll turn around and go direct. And so with 4 retrograde planets right now under the new moon tomorrow in Leo, you could be recognizing that sometime in this year you may have made a false start. And if you were sort of thinking that that was wonderful and you were going to continue with that, you might want to look at that again. First of all, it doesn't pay to make a false start, because what's the future in it? Nothing. And that is because another thing is happening that was occurring in the last 2 weeks as well, and it is that there are no planets in the fixed financial signs. There's nothing in Taurus, and there's nothing in Scorpio. So if you were going to make a new start, or if you've already done that and it's turned out to be a false start, going forward, you'd have to spend your own money on whatever you need to do to sort of fix that or enhance it in one way or the other, because there isn't anything in the financial signs to help you out with. And so a false start could originate from mixed messages. That's that Mercury in Leo tomorrow being retrograde, or from bad news that can be coming either your way or someone else's way, because that's what a retrograde Mercury could also represent. And so this is a time when there can be a challenge to leadership. And the reason why is that Pluto is so closely opposing the Sun and New Moon tomorrow. And of the 5 planets in the fire signs, those are the only 2 that are direct. And they're great. The Sun rules Leo. It's just that if you were planning on sort of riding somebody else's coattails or doing things the way you'd always done them before, you might be in for a rude surprise. As if, for instance, if you don't think you've made any false starts, it is possible that as management changes in upper management in large corporations, government agencies, or institutions, as they change and they begin to look toward their future plans, they may be realizing that they can't, and that's opposing Leo, which rules gambling, they may be realizing they can't afford to take a gamble on anything anymore, because they don't exactly know if they'll be successful in the future, and they're having to use their own money. Everybody's going to have to now. There isn't anything in the financial signs. And so that's going on. So there can be a change in management. And some people can be friends of other people, and that's how they got their job. And that works out just fine, right up until somebody is looking a little bit more closely at productivity or at the real results of somebody's work record or their basic requirements for doing the job. And possibly that would not work out for other people who have plans for the future. Maybe they're looking for new ideas and new people to implement them. That could certainly be true right now, because Venus and Uranus are both trining that Pluto in Aquarius. And for the first time in over 20 years, Uranus is finally trining the sign it rules, Aquarius, and that rules the future. But it opposes the sign of Leo, where the Sun, the New Moon, and Mercury are. That's why winning isn't everything right now, because no matter how much you had been winning in the past and whatever you did to win, it doesn't quite mean that you would be able to continue that. Another reason for that is that there can be relationship conflicts right now, and they can be acute, meaning that something's got to be resolved. And the reason why is, once again, Mars is in Virgo, and it is at 22 degrees right now. And it is exactly squaring Venus at 22 degrees of Gemini. It's also squaring Uranus, which is a malefic planet, and Mars is a malefic planet as well. So things can suddenly erupt anywhere in the world in a surprisingly bad way. But that's the way it goes right now. The relationship conflicts come because Mars rules men and Venus rules women, and they're exactly squaring each other at 22 degrees. So what is the real reason right now, sort of surprisingly, why winning isn't everything? Well, if you take a look at the exact position of the planets under this new moon in Leo tomorrow, you see that there are too many twos. And what I mean by that is the Sun and New Moon in Leo are at 2 degrees. They are being trined by Saturn and Neptune in Aries, also at 2 degrees. That's 4 planets right there. And then Mars is at 22 degrees, and it is exactly square Venus, also at 22 degrees. You see how often we're looking at the number 2? 6 planets are like that. They are all associated with that number 2. 2 is the lowest of all the even numbers, okay? And numbers only come one of 2 ways. They come even or odd. Well, we have a preponderance of planets that are associated with the number 2, which is an even number, and even numbers represent business matters or jobs or concrete results. And so there are too many 2s in this associated with this new moon tomorrow. And since 2 is the lowest of all the single digits, it is a number that is associated with being a little bit lazy. And what it means is that if you could get your job through a friend and nobody was questioning whether you were qualified or not, and that worked, with all these twos that are associated with planets under tomorrow's new moon, it means that winning isn't everything, because that's not going to stay the same. People who are looking toward the future and knowing they have to use their own money and can't afford to take a gamble are really closely looking at the qualifications of people, the real qualifications of them, not who knows who or whose coattails somebody else has been writing, but who is really qualified and has new ideas, is not relying on the past. But if they had good qualifications and they had some new ideas, then that would be good. Because I think the way we're going to resolve a situation involving people that have been a little bit lazy, sort of coasting along for a long time, picking up a paycheck, but not really working too hard for it, those people are going to run up against reality, and the demands of people who are changing in management and focusing more on their future needs and realizing they can't afford to take a gamble with anything, because they're going to have to spend their own money to succeed. And so what it boils down to is that you might sort of grudgingly concede right now that somebody else who's coming in with fresh ideas and good qualifications to follow through on them is probably going to succeed right now. But winning isn't everything. They'd be starting from scratch, but they probably do a pretty good job based on the qualifications they've already accrued that lends itself to developing new ideas. You could have great qualifications for something that you've been doing for a long time, but if there isn't a crying need for it, then winning isn't everything. And we'll have to face that. And so I hope you do have a good time going to a party or enjoying doing things with the kids at the beach or whatever you want to do, because this is summertime. But at the same time, I hope you take a few quiet moments and realize that these aren't the good old days. And money is a little bit scarce. And it is because maybe people have been too much in debt, and now they have to pay that off. Or maybe it is because there hasn't, there's been a philosophy of you rub my back, I'll rub yours, and people can protect their jobs that way. And now it's a whole new world where you have to face reality, and you're about as good as what you can do in your future, not as good as what you did in your past, particularly if you were riding somebody else's coattails to do it. Now, if that's not you, you're looking at a great new moon. It's just that I urge people that winning isn't everything. Because if you won by riding somebody else's coattails, you may be out of a job soon. Because that is not the way people in upper management are looking toward the future and realizing they can't take a gamble, or they cannot pad their payroll with people who are not being real productive right now. Those might have been the good old days, but that's not what's going forward. So if you've made a false start anywhere, this is a wonderful time to admit it and decide just to sort of turn the corner, or maybe go back to square one and try something that you'd rather be doing. So I wish you the best of luck. All right, what does this mean to all 12 of the sun signs? Well, for Aries. Aries, for you, this is a time, Aries, when the two planets that are in your sign are both at 2 degrees, and they are exactly trining the sun and the new moon tomorrow in Leo, also at 2 degrees. And Mercury they're trining Mercury too, which is retrograde in Leo. But Saturn and Neptune are retrograde, and that retrograde planets are a little bit weaker because they're going back over ground they've already covered before, and they're looking for the false starts, or they're looking for what they missed. And they are soon going to be actually going back into Pisces, and so they won't be in your sign for too much longer. Don't worry, they will turn around, go direct, and they'll come back into your sign for years, Aries. Particularly Neptune. Neptune will be in your sign for well over 10 years, maybe even 15 years. It'll stay a long time in a sign then. And we'll all have to quit kidding ourselves about new starts by then, and it will be a time to make a dream come true, which it could be for you right now. If you've gone back and you've already tried to make a dream come true because you had a solar eclipse in your sign in the spring this year, and you had another one in your sign last year, Aries, if you've realized that no matter how much effort you put into something, you could be looking at a false start right now, and that winning isn't everything, and that's because the rules have changed about how to win. Now it's got to be sort of people who really want to rush into the future. And you may be either happy with what you've been doing for a long time and you want to rest, that would be fine because those planets are retrograde in your sign, or you may be deciding that you have actually made a false start. Well, everybody's human, everybody can do that. This is a year of false starts, particularly with 4 retrograde planets right now. So you may want to start over, Aries. You may even want to go back to an idea that you had prior, and if it hasn't worked out well, you might want to tweak that a little bit and see if you can rework it in a way, and maybe with some new people, and get something going. So I think you're going to have to take 1 or 2 steps back before you can decide on how to take a new 1 step forward right now. But you do have the wonderful support of the Sun, the new moon, and a retrograde Mercury tomorrow that will be trining your Sun. It depends on how you want to spend your time, Aries. And the problem is that these are not the good old days, and you can't go back. If you've made a false start anywhere, this is the time to end that and to start off in a new direction. So I wish you the best of luck. So you might have to go back to the drawing board for that first. And so good luck. All right, what does it mean to a Taurus? Well, Taurus, this is a time, Taurus, when once again there's no planets in your sign or in Scorpio, and these are the 2 fixed financial signs. Okay, you could be going through a sort of a quiet spell right now, Taurus, but it wouldn't be that quiet because actually Mars is in Virgo and it is trining your Sun. And so you could be a little bit upset about something, and you could be wanting to really focus on the details because that's what Virgo rules, or on a health matter, that's what Virgo rules as well. And you want to be sort of getting down to the nitty gritty. It could also have to do with banking matters because that's what Virgo rules as well. And I would say, you might want to take a little pause on that, particularly if you are angry. I don't think being angry is going to get you anywhere right now, Taurus, because yes, Mars is trining your Sun, but nothing else is. And unfortunately, tomorrow, the Sun, the new moon in Leo, and Mercury in Leo, which is retrograde, are all squaring your Sun, and so is Pluto in Aquarius. And it's retrograde as well. So you have retrograde planets squaring your Sun, as well as the lights squaring your Sun. And I think, Taurus, you need to step back now. And in fact, I'd go on vacation if I were you. If you wanted to just go to the beach, enjoy the summer, Leo would love to do that. And if you could use that as a time to think things over, because it looks to me, Taurus, as if you have made a false start this year, and it could be more than one. And so you really need to take some quiet time to think about what you're doing. And if I know it's hard, a Taurus is a good hard worker. It might be a little hard for you to realize that the forces are against you right now. And there's so many planets that are associated with that number 2, which has to do with work. All even numbers have to do with work. It's that if you have been a little bit lazy, or you've been riding anybody else's coattails, or you've just been having a whole lot of fun, and it's summertime, maybe you've been wanting to do that. You're going to still have to sit down and figure out which false starts you have been making this year, and take responsibility for it, because it would have been your choice. Okay, it's like, if you made a false start this year and it isn't working out, or there's relationship conflicts right now, because Mars and Venus is your own ruler, are exactly squaring each other, you have a part in all that too. It's not just that you're the poor victim. You've been choosing some things that might prove to be false starts right now, and what you would benefit by is stepping back a little bit and thinking about whether you want to continue with a false start. I don't see you going down a dead-end road, Taurus. You're a smart person. You probably wouldn't want to do that, but if you choose that, that's what it's going to be, is a dead end. If, on the other hand, you admit that you made a false start, or that there are other things that are more important to you, so you prioritize what's important and what is just fun. Leos like fun, but Taurus is pretty practical. And if you're looking at the quality of your life right now, Taurus, and you realize that not everything is happy in it, and that you're just as responsible for the unhappiness as whoever else is involved, you might want to look at that as a false start. And like so many of us, you may decide that you just want to end it. And that would be a real good idea. The 3 planets in Leo are squaring your sun, and Pluto in Aquarius is squaring your sun, and your own ruler is getting squared by Mars. Exactly. Venus is. And so there's some, you're going to have to sort of grudgingly concede that you may have taken a false start or a wrong turn somewhere, and possibly more than one. And Venus is in Gemini, it rules 2 of everything. And so you might want to think that over and decide to make a change, Taurus, and real quietly do that. And believe me, whatever change you make, it's going to be on your nickel. And if you were going to do anything right now, Taurus, it should be to conserve your finances, not to spend anything. But how could you cut your costs down? This would be a very good idea. If you've taken a gamble on anything, it may not have paid off. But this is a pretty good time to realize that, Taurus, and decide what you want to do about that. So good luck. Okay, what does it mean to a Gemini? Well, Gemini, this is a time, Gemini, with Venus in your sign and Uranus in your sign, both being trined by Pluto in Aquarius. Even though it's retrograde, it represents people that are higher up in management in large corporations, government agencies, or institutions who like you. Now, they could be sort of changing their minds a little bit about who they want to put into leadership positions going forward, because maybe they have smaller budgets now in their organizations, or maybe there's a greater emphasis on actual productivity by the people that they're paying right now. That would tend to go in your favor, though, Gemini, because there is a possibility that that if you have been very productive, there is the possibility that, and you have some new ideas, that if you could sort of talk to the right people at a higher level, you may be able to get something started right now, which would be great. On the other hand, you too could have been made a false start in Gemini, and the reason why is that Mars is in Virgo at 22 degrees, exactly squaring Venus in your sign, also at 22 degrees. And so some sort of false start may have originated from you looking at something that you wanted to do, because even numbers rule jobs or activities that are productive. You could have been looking at something that you wanted to do, or even an investment that you wanted to make, and you could be changing your mind about that because you could see that there's too many problems involved with it, and they could be expensive. And there's no planets in the fixed financial signs. Whoever needs to make corrections on something, it's going to have to be on their own nickel. And so people everywhere, even if they were absolutely sold on a former choice, this is a time when you have to look and ask yourself, well, was that a false start? Was that really what I want? And is it actually going to cost a lot more than I thought? Because then it would be a false start, wouldn't it? You may have decided on something that would fit exactly in your budget. Fine. But if you found that it had more problems to it, it would turn out eventually to be a false start, because those problems, in order to fix them, it would be too expensive. So you need to sort of consider that right now, Gemini. You may have had a great idea in the past, sometime this year even, and if it turns out to be more expensive than you thought, or take longer than you thought it would, or something like that. Or if you feel that you've been sort of talking to the wrong people and that's a false start, then you could go in a new direction and start maybe trying to talk to people that are a little higher up that would be willing to listen to a well thought out presentation of yours. In other words, your sign rules casual conversation, but I think if you're going to go forward right now with people who are more influential in large corporations, government agencies, or institutions, you're going to have to be better prepared for whatever idea you're presenting. And I think that Geminis are generally better prepared than people think. And the reason why is that your sign rules ideas, because it's ruled by Mercury. You have a million good ideas. You probably have written a few of those down, Gemini. You probably have even been thinking of some good ideas for a long time. And you probably have a whole barrel full of new ideas that you could talk to somebody about. And you could just pick them out and dust them off and polish them a little bit and then go ahead and talk to people. I would do that if I were you, because there could be something else that represents a false start that either requires too much work or too much money, or else there could be a relationship, a conflict in a relationship that's getting pretty tough to live with, and you may want to end that. And that's because Mars exactly squares Venus. And you could be right about that, Gemini. Maybe just a time to end things. Because if you're upset about something and nobody's doing anything to admit that they're part of whatever's upsetting you, or that they want to correct it in some way, then you just need to, you need to move on, Gemini. Venus is a good planet. It's just having a hard time with representing relationships that are in conflict right now. You can either stay and fight with somebody. Well, where's that going to get you? You won't win. They won't either. That's stalemate. And Geminis don't like that. Geminis like to move right along. So my best wishes for you to do that. If you've made a false start, this is the time to admit it, Gemini, and just move on. Okay, what does it mean to a Cancer? Well, Cancer. This is a time, Cancer, when you can be anticipating new things, and they could involve a gamble or having a lot of fun, going to a party, having a good time, taking the kids to the beach, seeing a sporting event, whatever. Those are all the things that Leo rules. And that new moon is right ahead of your sun sign, Cancer. And so the sun, the new moon tomorrow, and Mercury, which are retrograde, are right ahead of your sign. And that simply means that you might be on the verge of thinking you're going to win something, and you need to take a real close look at that and see if it is everything that you want, and also if you're up to it. Okay, Cancers have a somewhat passive nature because your ruler is the moon, and the moon is a passive planet. Cancers like to get along with everybody. They have their little routines at home, and they like them, and they're very home-loving. And your sign also rules endings, and Cancers usually take quite a long time to end something, because they sort of, your sign is the crab, and when the crab wants to get somewhere, they do not move forward, straight forward. Have you looked at crabs? Crabs take their little feet and they move one way, and then they move the other way, and then they move the other way. They don't go straight forward. And so that's what Cancers do. Cancers are pretty careful about, okay, I'll just try it this way, and then that way, and then that way, and maybe I'll reach my goal sooner or later. Well, actually, you have an exalted Jupiter in your sign, Cancer, this year. It's the only time it's going to be there for the next 12 years. You should head for home, Cancer. You should head for little things you like doing, things that make you happy. Cancer rules manual labor. Cancers are very good with their hands. Even if they don't know what they're doing, they can work with their hands and still make something work. A little bit oddly, but they could make it work. It's not the same as being trained in a profession to do something, but still, around the home, Cancers they're pretty good at fixing things or making them look just fine. And of course, they're good cooks. So Cancer, you should head for home, or head back to an area that reinforces the values you learned when you were younger. Maybe that your parents sort of hoped that you would follow. And that would be important to you. Since your sign rules the last half of life, if you're anywhere close to the last half of your life, that's the direction you should be going in. To something that is settled and homey, and it means you wouldn't have to go so many different places. You wouldn't have to run in different directions. You'd be at the center of something that would give your life fulfillment. Even if it was a home that you were living alone in, you would be fulfilled in one way or another, mainly because you have this talent of making things look pretty good, or Cancers have a way of taking the simplest food and turning it into a gourmet delight. I don't know how they do it, but they do. They're great at that. So what I'm urging you to do, Cancer, is yes, this new moon in Leo, which represents that winning isn't everything, is probably something that you have grown to realize in your life as you get older. That winning isn't everything. That happiness counts. Contentment counts. And we all have a different level of enjoyment in our life. And we all have different things that bring us contentment or bring us joy. And for a Cancer, it centers around the home in one way or another. It doesn't mean they're one-dimensional. They can have a lot of other interests. But it's home base that matters. And I think if you head for that, or back to a place that is more reminiscent of your own early childhood and the things your parents were teaching you, this is a year to do it, because Jupiter is in your sun sign. And those are the only two planets, Jupiter, and the sun isn't even there. Jupiter is just there now. And it's the only exalted planet. And there is a change coming up for you, Cancer, anyway. It's not under this new moon, I don't think, unless you begin to make plans to sort of get your feet a little bit more on the ground and get you home, or get you to where you can really be comfortable. And that is absolutely possible with Jupiter in your sun sign. But in September, there are going to be two eclipses. One of them is very favorably going to affect you, Cancer, but it is a total lunar eclipse. So for everyone, with Mars squaring Venus under this new moon in Leo, exactly, both planets at 22 degrees, everybody, including you, Cancer, are going through relationship conflicts right now. And, you know, Cancers can go a long way to keep things peaceful, perhaps more than they should at times. Because they can get walked on a little bit or used, or Cancers are very sympathetic and empathetic to the point where they become somebody else's doormat. And this total lunar eclipse that's occurring in Pisces, which will trine your sun and trine your Jupiter, and it'll be at a time when Saturn and Neptune are both in Pisces as well, can be a time that you could make a dream come true. It's just that you, along with everyone else, may have made some false starts this year, and since this is the halfway point of the year, perhaps you are realizing that you made some false starts, and that has to end first. And your sign rules endings. So good luck, Cancer. I think you might be doing the right thing right now, and I think you're going to be able to keep going and probably be more successful and more contented than you can possibly imagine right now if you just keep heading for home. That will make you happy. All right, what does it mean to a Leo? Well, Leo, congratulations, Leo. The sun and new moon are in your sign tomorrow at 2 degrees. Mercury is retrograde in that sign as well, and they are both being trined by Saturn and Neptune, also at 2 degrees in Aries. So they're trining the sun and new moon in your sign exactly tomorrow. The problem is that among these 5 planets, the majority of them, or 3 of them, are retrograde, and then Pluto in Aquarius is the 4th retrograde planet, and it is opposing the new moon tomorrow in your sign, Leo, which means that somebody in upper management in an organization is looking at their bottom line and they're looking at how they want to progress in the future, and they are probably not going to be looking at you to fulfill their future goals. Now, they may have been pretty happy in the past with whatever you were doing, but a lot of people are going to have to make sort of a change and become more accepting of future changes that are coming right up. And it might be a little hard for you to take that right now, Leo. And so you may want to stay in the past. You could say, hey, whatever I was doing before, I was winning at that. I can keep going that way. Why not? Well, the reason why you can't do that, Leo, is because nobody else wants to do that. And Leos like to be popular. They like to be captain of the team, but that means you've got to have a team, Leo, in order to enjoy that position. And so you're going to have to start over. You've made some false starts, possibly 2 of them, this year alone. And the reason why is that Saturn and Neptune are both retrograde in Aries, which rules new starts. And Mercury's retrograde in your sign. You may be suffering, Leo, right now from mixed messages or some bad news that you may get. And you know, that too shall pass, Leo. Don't get too upset by that. It's just the way that life is changing now. And Leo, yours is a fixed sign. Fixed signs don't like change. And so it's hard for a fixed sign, which is Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. It's hard for them to change. The easiest one of all 4 of them is Aquarius. Aquarius likes going into the future, but they too are fixed in their opinions as well. And so, Leo, I think in a way, even though this is a nice new moon in your sign and the sun is there and the sun is your ruler, the deck is a little bit stacked against you right now. And if you could possibly just sit back and take a look at some of the choices that you have been making this year and ask yourself which ones are false starts. I can guarantee you there are some false starts, 2 at a minimum. Then perhaps if you admit that they are false starts, with the help of those 2 planets in Aries, that even though they're retrograde, they're still trining your sun exactly, maybe you could go in a little different direction. Or maybe you could try to revise your plans and cut your budget down a whole lot. Because remember, there are no planets in the 2 fixed financial signs. Taurus squares your sun and Scorpio squares your sun. There's nothing there. So the only way you're going to be able to rework something that perhaps hasn't worked out too well so far or is a false start is to use your own money to do it. And in order to do that, you'll have to sell an asset. But I think you have it. I think you have that asset. Well, why not go ahead and sell it if it helps you go in a new direction? And that can be that even if the new direction involves you reworking some idea that hasn't quite reached the potential that you thought it could, well, there's nothing wrong with going back and trying something new on it. I wish you the best of luck. And congratulations on the new moon. Okay, what does it mean to a Virgo? Well, Virgo, this is a time, Virgo, when you can be pretty upset about some sort of relationship conflict. And the reason why is that Mars in your sign is at exactly 22 degrees, and it is squaring Venus in Gemini also at 22 degrees. Gemini rules 2 of everything. You could have problems with younger people because Gemini rules youth. You could also have problems with people that don't want to be too serious right now. Maybe they want to be a little bit lazy. Maybe they want to coast along and do things. And you could be looking at the small details, or you could be looking at your bottom line because your sign rules accounting. And you could be saying, wait a minute, I'm spending too much money on this and I'm not getting a whole lot in return. And that could upset you a little bit. And so this might be a good time for you to sell something, Virgo. The new moon and the sun in Leo tomorrow, along with Mercury, your own ruler, Virgo, are right behind your sun sign. And Mercury is retrograde. So somewhere in the background of your life, and it could involve children's matters or love affairs or a sporting effort of one kind or another, or just some summer plans, that's all going to have to be reworked, Virgo, because you could be a little bit upset about things that you thought were going more smoothly behind the scenes, and I think that you're sort of mad that they didn't work out that way, or that other people had been deliberately trying to sort of thwart your good ideas and or question them. And so there could be a real change coming up in a relationship conflicts, and there could be two of them. Maybe with somebody younger and then with somebody older, who knows. But I think that you're going to have to try to sort of keep a lid on it, Virgo. There are no other planets in Earth signs. Your sign doesn't have any backup. And so you're really going to have to try to be as calm as you can right now. And remember, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told you last week. If you wanted to end something, you actually could do it. And nicely. And the reason why is that the Sun and Jupiter in Cancer, and Jupiter's going to stay, or not the Sun, but Jupiter in Cancer is going to stay in Cancer for a year, and it is sextiling your Sun. You could solve a family problem if you needed to. You could solve a real estate problem. You could solve a problem involving labor in one way or another. Cancer rules manual labor, working with your hands. Or something that has to do with agriculture or mining. You could solve a problem like that, Virgo. I think that if you were wanting to line up problems that you are in conflict about, I hope that you're putting your own health as the highest priority, because your sign rules health. And work on that first. And try and get in the best health that you can right now. And if anger is preventing you from being at your best, then you're going to have to try to find a way to work out your anger. And that new moon is right behind your sun sign, and Leo rules sports. Maybe you need to get some more exercise, tire yourself out a little bit more, so that you're not spending so much time worrying about things. Everybody is capable of having made some false starts this year, and if you just admit that maybe it wasn't even this year, maybe it was years ago, if you admit that there are some things that you're not happy with in your life, Virgo, that's the first step to solving the problem, is to admit that you've got one. And then with your fine mind, you can sort of figure out how to solve a problem right now, or even end it. And you would be able to end it rather well. So good luck. Okay, what does it mean to a Libra? Well, Libra, this is a time, Libra, when I think that you are going to benefit in many ways right now. And, in little ones and in big ones. And the reason why, Libra, is because the Sun, the new moon, and Mercury in Leo all sextile your Sun. Okay, they're behind your Sun sign, but they sextile it. And then Venus, your own ruler, and Uranus are in Gemini, trining your Sun. And Pluto, which is retrograde in Aquarius, is also trining your Sun. You are, in some ways, even if you're not completely settled or completely happy where you are right now, Libra, I think you're still sitting pretty. It's somehow in your life you're sort of sitting pretty right now. You might be pretty happy with your life in one way or another. It doesn't mean all your goals are met, or it doesn't mean you have all the money that you want, or it doesn't mean that all your relationships are working out. But you have enormous support right now, Libra, among others. They like you, okay? And you have talent. And remember, the reason why winning isn't everything is that whatever way people were winning in the past is probably not going to work in the future. And the reason why is that upper management and large corporations, government agencies, or institutions are looking for new ideas and people who can make them work without taking a gamble too much, because even though Leo rules gambling, that Leo new moon tomorrow has got some pretty challenging aspects to it. And people who are headed into the future are not looking for the same old thing. And it can be, Libra, that you have been sort of hiding your light under a bushel and not letting people know as much about your talent as you could. And I think you need to do a little advertising. Well, Gemini rules advertising, and Venus and Uranus are in Gemini. The most important thing is that Uranus has left Taurus, and it is now, for the first time in 20 years, trining the sign it rules, Aquarius. And that is the underlying reason why a lot of management is looking for new talent or new ideas. And they know they can't take a gamble on anything because new things, you don't know how new things are going to come out. So they need the really right people in to implement those new ideas, because they're going to have to spend their own money to make sure that works out. And you know, Pluto in Aquarius is going to be trining your sun for years. And Uranus is trining your sun now, which means you could meet some pretty high up people in a rather surprising and unusual way, and you'd have a delightful conversation with them. It will work out just fine. So Libra, my suggestion to you is do not look back. Don't waste a minute on your past. Just look forward. And if you've made some false starts this year, which is fine, most people have done that, it's better to admit it and close those doors and then open a new one to your future. And you're going to have help with that. You're going to have people that want you to do that, Libra. So good luck. And, you know, they'll never find you at home, Libra. You've got to get out among them. So good luck. Okay, what does it mean to a Scorpio? Well, Scorpio, once again, there's no planet in your sign and there's nothing in Taurus. And so although Uranus has been opposing your sun sign for the last 6 years, which could have destabilized your finances in one way or another, Scorpio, because that's what Uranus is. It's a malefic planet. And it's been in Taurus opposing your sun sign for a pretty long time. And there's nothing there now. And so that's actually going to change in the fall when Uranus goes back into Taurus for 1 more year. But at the same time, Jupiter in Cancer is now trining your sun, and it's exalted. And so that means that somewhere at home or in a real estate matter or something to do with manual labor, even good cooking, for instance, anything that Cancer rules, is going to be a benefit to you, Scorpio. I don't know if you're going to enter a cooking contest and win first prize, but you probably could. But also it simply means that there is the possibility, particularly right in your own backyard or in a home where you grew up, and you could be influenced by your parents' values quite a bit right now, because Jupiter is in Cancer and it's exalted. It's not just any old Jupiter. A planet is only exalted in one sign, and that's where it's at its best. Well, for Jupiter, the sign is Cancer, and Cancer trines your sun. And in September, there will be a total lunar eclipse in Pisces, and Saturn and Neptune will also be trining your sun at the same time that Jupiter's still in Cancer and doing that. So you have a pretty good thing to look forward to, Scorpio, and you don't have as many financial problems as you used to because there's nothing in Taurus opposing your sun sign. This could relate to expenses. Your expenses could have been pretty high in the last couple of years, and it could be due to things that cost a lot. It could be due to costly travels or costly investments that didn't pay off, or debt that was too high, or just a real good time that you might have been having. Those things cost money too. And now the sun and the new moon in Leo, along with Mercury, are squaring your sun, Scorpio, and Pluto in Aquarius is also squaring your sun. So there's a little sort of sorting out that you need to do right now, Scorpio, and there's probably something that you need to end. And it certainly can be a false start, possibly 2 of them. And the reason why is that there are too many planets at the number 2, which seem to indicate people who have been a little bit lazy on whatever their job description was, and maybe they didn't really fulfill it quite as much. I mean, they might have said they were taking credit for work maybe that they didn't really do, or had somebody else do it, but that's not quite the same as being really productive yourself, and having the credentials for that. And so this is when winning winning isn't everything. There could be somebody in a high position that says, well, I'm head of this, and look at all the good results we've had, as if they did the work. But maybe they didn't. Maybe they farmed out all the work and are simply taking the credit. Would you really hire that person to do something new on your nickel when you don't know if it's going to work and they don't have the qualifications to prove it would work? Would you really hire somebody like that? That's a question that a lot of employers are asking right now, and that is why they could be realizing they have made false starts, and you could have done that too. And this new moon in Leo does square your sun. And so there are a few people around. It's at 2 degrees, you know, and the sun and the moon are at 2 degrees. There could be some people in your life, Scorpio, that have been along for the ride, and they've had a good ride. I mean, that's been fun for them, but you would have paid for it. And since there's nothing in your sign and nothing in Taurus, nobody can get away with riding somebody else's coattails now. That's the false start that's in a lot of people's lives. And now people are looking for new goals and new ideas and people who really have some experience, and not just experience, but credentials that will give them a high possibility of succeeding in something new. That's what we're really needing, or that's what upper management wants. And so if you have some financial problems, or you have some relationship conflicts or health problems, all because Mars and Venus are squaring each other right now, you need to attend to those first, Scorpio. Put your money on your own nose. If you have a health problem, go pay to get it fixed. This is a good time to do it. Besides, you want to be at your best when that Pisces total lunar eclipse trines your sun at the same time that Jupiter's trining it in September. And so it's probably possible. It's hard for a fixed sign to admit that they have made some false starts, but I think everybody has made some false starts this year. You're not alone, Scorpio. And now is a good time to understand what the false starts are and how much they cost you, and how you can sort of bring something to an end well. You can do it because Jupiter is in Cancer ruling endings, and it's trining your sun. This is the right time to end things, particularly if they've been false starts. The ending would be okay, and then it would free you up to go forward and try to be a little bit truer to what's in your real heart, Scorpio. And yours is a fixed financial sign, and there's got to be something besides money in your heart. I mean, you're a good money manager, but we're all human. And this is a time when you should think a little bit more about your own long life and who you want to share it with and what's important to you. And it's going to be closer to home than you think, particularly this year since Jupiter is in the sign of the home, Cancer, and it's trining your sun. So good luck. Okay, what does it mean to a Sagittarius? Well, Sagittarius, this is a time, Sagittarius, when the new moon tomorrow in Leo is really going to benefit you, because the sun, new moon, and Mercury are trining your sun, and so are Saturn and Neptune in Aries. You have 5 planets, 5 planets all trining your sun tomorrow, Sagittarius. Are you thinking of going on a trip? Your sign rules long distance travel. Well, this is a pretty good time to do that because it's still summertime and you can have a lot of summer fun. And it may not represent too much of a gamble. I mean, you might be sort of thinking about how to do it in an economic way. I would advise you to do that. You should go on a trip, Sagittarius. You've got a lot of planets trining your sun, more than you've had in a long time. And besides, it's the sun and the new moon tomorrow trining your sun. And so it's something that Leo rules, which can be parties and fun and taking gambles and betting on the ponies and being around kids and traveling, which is what your sign rules. It could all come together for you right now, Sagittarius. So even if you're not taking a trip this week, you might decide to plan one. And I think you could afford one. You could do it within your budget. That would work out really well. And on top of that, the weather could be pretty good. So why don't you give it a try, Sagittarius? It would be rarely that there would be so many planets trining your sun sign. And so this is a time when you really need to sort of get up and get going, Sagittarius. And the reason why is that there are some planets that could create some worry for you. And that is because Mars is in Virgo at 22 degrees squaring your sun. Venus is in Gemini at 22 degrees squaring your sun, and Uranus is in Gemini squaring your sun as well. So there can be relationship conflicts right now. Not in all your relationships, Sagittarius, not with all these planets trining your sun, but there probably is an unfair relationship somewhere in your life that represents a false start. And you got to get out from under that, Sagittarius. You don't need that right now. You could sort of fly high right now if you wanted to. And yet there can be some relationship around that's dragging you down or holding you back or using you for something. And you need to end that. And that would be with people that do not share your high intellect or your high values. And so if you're realizing that you've made a false start, it could be in a business matter. And if you're saying, okay, I don't like the way this is going, this would be a very good time to end it. And I think you could be in control of ending it. In other words, you could end it on your terms. And this would be an excellent time to do that, Sagittarius, so good luck. Okay, what does it mean to a Capricorn? Well, Capricorn, there aren't a lot of planets in Earth signs right now. Oh, in fact, there's only one, and it is Mars in Virgo, which is trining your sun. That Mars is so beleaguered right now because Venus is exactly squaring it in Gemini, and so is Uranus. Uranus is in earlier degrees of Gemini, but they're both squaring that Mars, and Uranus and Mars are two malefic planets. And so if somebody else is having relationship problems and they're a friend of yours or they're a relative of yours or they're a neighbor of yours, you might get caught up in the relationship conflict going on, or at least you might know about it, Capricorn. And I would urge you not to step in, but to, you could sort of whisper in somebody else's ear or very, very quietly try to end it and advise somebody else on how to do it. And if you could advise somebody else how to end something that does represent an unfair relationship. In other words, either you may know somebody who's being taken advantage of quite a bit, and you know that's not fair, Capricorn. You could sort of quietly advise them on how to get out of that or how to end that. And so you don't have to be real obvious about anything right now, but Capricorns are very knowledgeable. They don't skip steps, and also if they're wondering about something, they look it up. They'll go in search of information and they'll get it. The two best signs in the whole universe for detective work are Capricorn and Scorpio. They make excellent detectives. So if you wanted to help a friend out of a tight spot or a false start where they have been treated unfairly, you could probably be quite helpful to them right now, Capricorn. Or if it has been happening to you, you could begin to gather information that would do you a lot of good right now. And at the same time, with Mars in Virgo trining your sun, but it being beleaguered, and also it's a malefic planet and it's in the sign of healthcare, you have to make sure that your health is as good as it can be. And Capricorns sort of always have their nose to the grindstone. They're perpetual workers. Even if they're working at a hobby, they're working at it. I mean, they take it real seriously. And so this may be a time when if after you help somebody else with their problems, maybe you and a friend could go on vacation, Capricorn, and just take the load off right now. I would do that. People can have physical ailments, but Mars is in Virgo, and Virgo rules mental health as well as physical health. And sometimes you can go to the doctor and get all the right answers and the right treatments for whatever physically ails you and still not get well until your mental frame of mind changes, until you lighten up and stop worrying about things. And that's hard for a Capricorn to do, because they do worry about things. And they're very thorough. They don't skip steps. And this is a time, Capricorn, when you need to let go a little bit of what is worrying you. Because if it represents a false start, well, you're just as human as everybody else. And this is a whole year of false starts. There's nothing wrong with you admitting that you made a false start. Just admit it. And get that mental anguish off your mind by ending it. And you could do it. Jupiter is in Cancer. It is opposing your sun sign, indicating a separation. It may be a separation of something that was a relationship on one level, but nothing any better beyond it, and you could end it. And if you have a friend who's in a position like that, you could advise them on how to end it. So good luck, Capricorn. There's nothing wrong with admitting a false start, even more than one. And trying to do something that gives you a little mental relaxation, and that could be from sort of detaching from false starts and ending them so that you can relax yourself. Okay, good luck. All right, what does it mean to an Aquarian? Well, Aquarius, this is a time, Aquarius, when you can be real determined to head into the future and follow your dream or follow an idea that you have. I don't think an Aquarian only has one idea. Yours is a very creative sign, and your sign rules the future, so that's the way you're always thinking. And so this is a time with Pluto in your sign and it being retrograde and opposed by the Sun, the new moon, and a retrograde Mercury tomorrow, and having to deal with relationship conflicts as well. Because your ruler is in Uranus, and it is in Gemini, being squared by Mars in Virgo. See how much you've actually got on your plate, Aquarius? You could be worried about relationships that aren't working out. They could be false starts. And you could be unsatisfied with the performance record of people who say they're leaders or say they're talented, and what they're good at is taking credit for other people's work. And that isn't the same as having done it yourself. And so they have a lot of experience at claiming success, but not a lot of experience at doing it. And that's why winning isn't everything, because they didn't do enough to win. They have done enough to claim credit for the work other people did that made them look like winners. But that's not the same. That's why winning isn't everything. You really have to have the proof, actually, or the consistently new ideas. And I think that you're going to start pursuing at least one, possibly two, new ideas that you have had for a long time, Aquarius. And so I think that you're going to be doing it with new people, and they could be younger. Your ruler for the first time in 20 years is in Gemini, trining your sun. This is a magic time for you, Aquarius, to get out and make new friends and be stunned by the fact that they're so talented and quite eager to work with you. They could be around. Venus is in Gemini, trining your sign as well. So this is a real important time for you not to look back, Aquarius. Wipe the slate clean. It doesn't matter how many false starts you've had. That doesn't bother an Aquarian. Aquarius rules invention. Well, Aquarius could have a lot of things that they can think about inventing. Well, they don't all work. But that doesn't stop you. And so your sign is always more comfortable in the future because it rules the future. And that's the direction you should be going in. And I think that you're going to be surprised if you step away from any false starts that you've made, which are quite possible, particularly with people who've been riding other people's coattails and claiming that they're successful, but never actually did the work. They just supervised it. That's not the same thing as getting together with other people who have a lot of talent in one way or another, even amazing ways, that could lend their talent to something that you're thinking about too, Aquarius, and that could work out to be quite beneficial in the future. And you really need to look forward now, not back. Don't go back to yesterday, Aquarius. First of all, it's bad news, and that's because Mercury is in Leo opposing your sun sign, so there can be some bad news associated with your past. Well, who wants to look at that? I wouldn't do that, Aquarius. Just remember your sign rules tomorrow and focus on that 100%. And I think you could be amazed at who you run into and who you talk to. And it doesn't mean that everything will be easy. Aquarius doesn't care if it's easy or not. They just sooner or later want it to work. And yours is a fixed sign, so you do stick to things if you want to. And this is the time to do that instead, so good luck. Okay, what does it mean to a Pisces? Well, Pisces, this is a time, Pisces, when I think that you can be having to admit some false starts now. And they could be starts that happened behind the scenes when Saturn and Neptune were in your sign, and now that they're not in your sign anymore, they are in Aries right in front of your sign, but they are retrograde. They're going to be coming back in your sign, but they're not there now. They are actually being trine by the Sun and New Moon in Leo and Mercury tomorrow. And so retrograde planets are weaker, but in your sign, Pisces, there isn't anything. There aren't any planets yet. But you do have Jupiter, the only exalted planet in the heavens, in Cancer, trining your sun. And Pisces, if there was ever a time when you could sort of go home and close the door and be pretty happy about that, it would be right about now. Because it isn't just Jupiter in a sign, it's an exalted Jupiter. I mean, Jupiter's already a planet of benevolence and goodness and abundance. Multiply that times 10, and that's what you get with an exalted planet, and that's trining your sun. So if you just, no matter, it wouldn't even matter what the home looks like. It said you got to get back to home, Pisces. And it could be where you grew up, or it could be associated with an old neighborhood that you used to live in. And it's going to feel good the minute you get there, and it'll remain that way. And the reason why is that Pisces is a double-bodied sign. And so Pisces can go either way. It's the sign of the two fish. Okay? They can be jumping high and doing their best, or they can be diving low and going into temptation and getting in all kinds of trouble. Well, who wants to do that? But if there have been some false starts in your life in the past, Pisces, with Jupiter trining your sun right now and a total lunar eclipse coming up in your sun sign in September, which isn't that far away, you are certainly going to have a chance to make a new life for yourself. And it's going to be at home. And I don't know who else is going to be there with you, because you may have made some false starts in relationships, and that could be sort of grinding on you right now, Pisces. You could be realizing that, because Mars in Virgo is opposing your sun sign, and Uranus and Venus in Gemini are both squaring your sun sign. There's 3 planets that are giving you problems right now, Pisces, and only one, the exalted Cancer, or Jupiter in Cancer, that's helping you out. And so, and the new moon in Leo is 150 degrees away from your sun, or in conjunct. It's not going to have too much of an effect on you. And so this is a time when you need to just say, how do I want to live the rest of my life? And who do I want to share that with? And how can we be happy at home? And if you made some false starts, particularly with people who want the merry-go-round to keep going, or the party to keep going, or the fun to keep going, those are not the people that belong with you at home, Pisces. It's the person that should be at home with you is there because they want to be, and it's through thick and thin. And it has nothing to do with your outside activities. It has nothing to do whether you're rich or poor. It has everything to do with being compatible. And Pisces can be an angel at times. They can also be pretty hard to live with at times. And this is a chance for you to turn over a new leaf, Pisces, and dust off your halo and be the nicest person you can be. Now Jupiter's going to be trining your sun for a year. And you need to make home a nice place to live. and have people that are happy to be there with you. But they're the kinds that can go through good times and bad. They're the kind of people that are not counting the money. They're counting how precious you are to them. And I hope that you're feeling the same way. And you know, somewhere, Pisces, there's a twin soul for you. And you could be coming closer to that than you realize, but it would not be anybody from your past. It would be somebody who fits you pretty well right now. And you've grown and changed too, and they're a good fit, is what I would say. They're not a party person. They're not a person who wants to be number one. They may not be too materialistic. So I hope you have some money, Pisces, because they may not. But they're not after you for that. They're there to be there through thick and thin. And you would do the same for them. That's the true nature of a Pisces. And so I'm not talking about pity, and I'm not talking about compassion, and I'm not talking about feeling sorry for somebody. Those are all nice things, but you don't have to live with people that's going on with. I'm talking about quiet joys, and even the joy of working together in fixing your home up. That could be nice. Certainly the joy of cooking would be nice. Simple things. Look for that, Pisces. And if you've made a false start, certainly more than one this year, this is the time to admit it and turn over a new leaf. So good luck. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. And thank you very much for the new viewers. And I hope you tell your friends about the show. And I'll see you right back here next week for STARBORN. Bye.